All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the final meeting of the Senate Judiciary Committee. I appreciate everyone's attendance. It has been a very long, arduous, and tough year, and thank y'all for hanging there with us. I want to say a special thanks to Cole Johnston, who has helped mightily as an intern and just helping Holly prepare everything for this committee, making sure we get all the documents that we need and everything's in order. And thank you very much, Cole. And then also for certain, a special thank you to Ms. Ogden. Holly has been great in this committee. Um,
Thank
she she keeps me in line. She reminds me of things, and she masks all my inabilities to perform tasks that I should be performing. She runs interference for me, and I'm thankful for that. So thank you very much. No, but some of them, vast majority. So with that, let me address HB 227. That is Representative Simpson. Representative Simpson, you're here. I want you to kind of tell us. First of all, you're aware we're going to carry this over, and I want some. I want to have some comments, but I want to hear from you also.
Thank you for allowing me the opportunity, Mr. Chairman.
Give me just a second. Let's do this. Let's call a roll first. Again, thank you, Holly.
Senator Albritton, Senator Bell, Senator Carnley, Senator Coleman Madison. Okay. Senator Elliott, Senator Figures, Senator Gavan, Senator Orr, Senator Singleton, Senator Smitherman, Senator Stutz, Senator Weaver, Senator Barfoot. 10, and we have a quorum.
All right, we have a quorum. Representative Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I appreciate you giving me a little bit of leeway here to have a conversation about what this bill actually does and the intent behind what we have. The bill draws clear lines between what is a criminal prosecution and what is a civil matter. It clearly states if something that can send you to prison would be handled by the district attorney or the attorney general's office. The bad things, the bribery, the use of office for personal gain, the things that really people do bad would be handled by the district attorneys or the attorney general's office. The got you things, the things that people aren't going to prison for, the people that they're not really prosecuting people for these things, they just have that in their tool belt to do. My concern with these got yous, with the God of these language that they've got in there, is these are the things that they get people to plead guilty to or hold over their head, not for criminal punishment, but for civil violations. So they're telling people, hey, you know, this is actually a Class B felony. If we present this, if we take this to the Attorney General, we can present this to a Class B felony, or you can just pay a fine right now. And if you pay this fine right now, it'll go away. That's not the way to handle cases. That's not the way prosecution should be done. You should prosecute based on what the facts are in a matter, not what you can leverage. Leverage has been brought up in conversations. Leverage has been brought up in discussions that we've had. Leverage is not the appropriate way to handle the law in Alabama. It's not about leverage. It's about proving what you can prove and letting the jury make that determination. I mentioned to you yesterday 300,000 people. If you look at that report in 2019, people want to know why I'm doing this. There's a couple of reasons. One, in that report in 2019, that paragraph that I read to you, this affects 300,000 people. It's not the 140 people in this building. This law is not about the 140 people in this building. It's the teachers, it's the firefighters, it's the police, it's every city, county, and state employee that fall under these laws. It's not only them, but it's their extended families, and I've been told that that level beats about 1.2 million people that these laws affect that fall under what we're doing here today, these ethics laws. When I was elected in November of 2018, the week right after the election, we came down for an orientation. I'm not sure if the Senate was involved in that orientation that week or not, if it was just a House thing. As part of the orientation, there was an ethics presentation. It was a panel of ethics attorneys. There were 3 attorneys on that panel: Raymond Bell, Greg Buttress, and Matt McDonald. After their presentation, there was a question and answer period. During that question and answer period, legislators, new members, old members alike, asked questions of, hey, can I do this? What happens if I do this? Am I allowed to do this? Every single question that we asked got a different answer from every one of those attorneys. I'm not saying that it was the same attorney that would say yes, the same attorney would say no, and the same attorney would say maybe. That wasn't what happened. The attorneys would say, one would say, yes, you can do that. One would say, no, you can't do that. And one would say, it depends, and maybe you can. If the ethics professionals, the people who do this, the people who practice this area of law, can't give legislators advice on what you can and can't do without knowing because the laws aren't clear, what chance does the teacher have? What chance does that firefighter have? What chance does the everyday city clerk have to understand what the laws are? Let me tell you a story about one of the reasons why I've done this. There was a guy who was a city employee. His job was maintenance. He cut the grass. Okay, his job was cutting the grass. He got a new lawnmower for his personal. He bought a new lawnmower, his personal lawnmower for his house. He bought a lawnmower. He donated his old lawnmower to the city. Donated, said, "Hey, the city can use this. I cut grass for the city. I'm going to use this for them." His new lawnmower that he purchased went out, so he used the lawnmower that he donated to the city. That is use of office for personal gain, and that is an ethics violation. He was prosecuted for that ethically through the ethics violation. So this is not about you. It's not about me, and it's not about the 140 people in this building. It's about the 300,000 people that have no clue what the laws are. You see why the Ethics Commission and the Attorney General are against it? I get it. I'm the only person in Alabama that I know that can get Steve Marshall and Tom Albritton to agree on anything. But what I'm telling you is this. In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. If nobody knows what the laws are other than the Attorney General and the Ethics Commission, they don't want you to know these things. They don't want the general public not to have to pick up the phone. I've been a practicing attorney for almost 20 years. I've been a prosecutor for almost 12. I've prosecuted ethics violations. I still, to this day, have to keep the Ethics Commission on call to call them and find out if I can do something or if I can't do it. That's not right. It shouldn't be that complicated that nobody knows what the laws are in Alabama, and it's just a matter of gotcha. If they get mad at you, if they don't like you, if they don't like what they're doing, then they can come after anybody and find anybody anything that you can do. And that's a scary, scary place for the people of Alabama to be. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Representative Simpson. Senator Figures.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Simpson, I want to applaud you on all of the time and work that you have put into this. And let me just say, there were many of us here when that last ethics bill was passed, and we argued that that many things were not clear, that it was left open for various interpretations. And I know that I personally, when I catch something anywhere, it should be clear, even if you have to repeat it in the legislation, that it should not be left open to various interpretations. So I just want to let you know that I appreciate your work in this and that I agree with you. It needs to be worked out, and it does need to be crystal clear. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Cole Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Simpson, thank you. I did take time to read your bill last night. And if you have it there, I do have just some
Yeah.
questions for my clarification so that I know and understand what I'm voting on. And you mentioned that the AG has
Senator Cole Madison, we've carried it over, but you're certainly welcome to ask those questions.
okay, I still want to ask my questions.
Yes, ma'am.
AG has a veto authority in here over whatever the commission decides.
Yes, ma'am.
So how does that mesh? The AG is an elected person that's partisan.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have a problem with this. If you've got an independent body there that's making a decision, you have a representative from the AG's office that's there basically.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of giving them a hand up or a leg up here, especially with the veto power. So which is it? Are they independent or not? Or I'm leery. I'm not trustful.
You and everybody else in this room, I'm going to tell you, that's the problem. That's the problem is we're into a turf war. This has everything to do with power and has everything to do with who gets to say what. So this isn't a situation of, there were accommodations that were tried to be made to appease the attorney general through this process, to let them be involved, to let them see what they can have. One of the things that they wanted was sign off at the end, so that any remedy that was done by the ethics commission would have to be signed off by the attorney general. Another thing that they wanted was any opinion that was given by the ethics commission, or any kind of, they had the ability to issue a veto to say, hey, wait a minute, we can still prosecute you. What you have in this situation is the ethics commission can say what they want and have the opinion that they want, but at the end of the day, the attorney general or the district attorneys are the ones that actually prosecute. So if just because the ethics commission issues an opinion that says you can do this, the attorney general is not bound by that opinion. So they have the ability to come back and say, no, just because they say you can do that, that doesn't mean it's not against the law. We're having the opportunity to veto that opinion. Um, we're in a situation, and I understand the bill's not going anywhere, but we need to have these open and honest discussions so everybody can understand what you
Right.
have. The attorney general thinks the bill limits his office too much. The ethics commission thinks the bill gives too much power to the attorney general. That is a fine line we are trying to dance to try to figure out what's the answer? Okay, it can't be just you give blanket power to one. I personally have a problem giving blanket power to one individual to say you decide everything. And it's nothing against Steve Marshall. I'm a big fan of Steve Marshall. I'm a big fan. I think Catherine was here yesterday. I'm a big fan of Catherine and the entire office. But it's not about Steve Marshall.
Right.
It's about what happens to the next guy that comes in. If you give blanket authority to have somebody, one person, make the determination for every prosecution across the state, that's scary. That is a scary,
Yeah.
scary position to be in. I believe strongly that the Ethics Commission has a role in this state. I believe strongly that the Ethics Commission serves a function and serves a purpose. And that if it's an ethics violation, there's a difference between the bad and the you shouldn't do that. If it's a you shouldn't do that, it shouldn't be a threat of having 20 years over your head. It should be a civil violation. It should be a punishment to the extent of pretty hefty punishment. I'm all for if you cross the line, then you have sanctions, you have punishment, you should be prosecuted. It's only fair to just let people know where the lines are.
Yeah. Okay. On page 52, it seems like there's a double standard when you deleted coaches or you put them in a separate category as far as gifts. And I remember when we passed this thing that teachers could not even accept what $10 a pencil or whatever. Everything had a value about it. But here we want to put the coaches in a separate class,
Yes.
and not even report it.
Yeah, here's the situation with that. Teachers fall under the gift ban. We increased the gift ban under this bill to 100, so teachers would be up to 100. So you can give your teacher grant to this way. The coach's perception,
Yeah, we don't get anything like coaches.
if the coach's perception is, I don't want to be the person in the Alabama legislature that is the reason why, he's not there anymore. But if Nick Saban says I can't do this because Alabama doesn't put me on the fair playing field as every other coach in the NCAA, if Alabama and Auburn can't recruit the top coaches in this country, we're all out of a job. All they need is somebody to say the Alabama legislature cost me the opportunity to come there. And I'll be honest, we're all looking for a job the next election cycle.
Oh, I understand what you're saying.
touch football.
But if we're talking about ethics,
Mm-hmm.
and if we're talking about leveling the playing field,
Mm-hmm.
treating everybody equally, as you say,
Mm-hmm.
nobody should have to worry about what the law is, or I can't be a coach.
And let me tell you this, another thing. That is the current law. That is nothing that we changed.
I understand, but it just need to be pointed out that there is a huge discrepancy here as far as classes of people,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about who rules in Alabama. We know that we're number one in football and all that, but I mean, citizens don't feel that they get a fair share. The last question that I had here, well, I didn't quite understand on page 25. I need an example of that. Let me go back to it. Mr. Chairman, I thank you for your indulgence.
Good conversation.
25, 35. It was something on this page that I wasn't quite sure. I needed an example. But anyway, let me ask you one last question about public employee, the definition here.
Mm-hmm.
Public employee.
What page are you on?
I think it's on page 15.
Okay. Yes, it is. That's the definition. Of public.
An employee, I didn't understand number 3, an employee who is not paid in whole or in part from the state, county, I understood this as basically the issue here is public funds,
Hmm.
but now this kind of separates what is a public employee. You know, if you're part time or whatever, but it says is not paid in whole or in part. Is not paid. Let me see. Who is not paid in whole or in part from? Okay, so you're not paid.
You're not
You're not
paid by
getting any
public
money.
funds. You're not getting
Okay.
any money. So there are people, there are attorneys, there are other people that work for the city or do things like, for instance, if a law firm says we're going to loan you out to the city to do certain work, well, they're not a public employee. They're just doing work from there. There's other people that serve on boards and serve on all these type of everybody creates a board, some type of commission, some type of zoning board to come through, and they're not paid. And so if these people aren't getting paid from public funds, do they really need to be classified as a public employee to fall under some of these things that go through? If people are volunteering their time, if they're or even if they're not, not necessarily, some are pure volunteers. Some are just absolutely pure volunteers. That's not people that we need to go into their finances and do everything
Right.
that they need to have. Some people serve on boards for the purpose of trying to make the community better. And we don't want to just, there's some people that would say, I would love to serve on this board, but I don't want the state government getting involved in my finances, so I'm not going to serve on my board. We want the best and the brightest to be able to come there and be involved in the creation of government so we get great ideas. And if these people aren't getting paid, if there's no corruption through that process, why should they fall under some of these
One last question on page 39 about the travel prohibited source to
things?
make payments and reimbursement. It mentioned travel's expense and registration.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I mean, the other things that we're familiar with, but
That's the current
typically,
statute as it is. So if someone um, here, there are conferences that certain organizations put together to come through these things, and they pay for your travel, they pay for your hotel, they pay for all these things, but there's an education component to come through that.
right,
That is the current law. A lot of what we've done here is just transpose the current law. We never touched the FCPA, and there's as much as we could possibly do while keeping the spirit of the law. We didn't touch the current law. So this continues that education portion of allowing us. Some people have opportunities to travel to different places for education purposes to go through. That's still permissible through this. It just has to be reported. So the way that this bill is set up is if the gift is less than $100, it does not have to be reported. If it is more than $100, that value has to be reported and has to be public, and the public would be aware of it. But there are exceptions to that. Those exceptions will have to qualify, and that has to be reported. So these are the exceptions that would have to be there. So if someone pays for your travel, they can still do that, but the public will be aware that, hey, this person took this. And you may have the opportunity to say, look, they were talking about something in my district at this conference. I needed to be there. So yes, I did it. And so you can stand up to your people and tell them that. It's just something that the people will know, hey, this organization spent this much money on this senator to be there or this representative to be there. It's just the public awareness of this is increased through this process.
I will say the changes that you did make here does clarify a lot of things, in particular with contracts and those types of things, and what members and family members can do. I think that has always been a gray area, but it's always been an area that people tend to get kind of caught. So that was good addition. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Representative Simpson said this yesterday. Want to reiterate it again. You put lots of time into this. Don't think it's in vain. I think this conversation will continue, and I suspect we'll have House members, hopefully, and senators that will be engaged in further discussions so that we will see this bill next year. And I want to thank you publicly for all of your efforts. I know, as I said yesterday, you've taken a lot of heat, lots of different sides, and a man of integrity, and I appreciate you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the committee. Appreciate you
Thank
all.
you. All right, next up is HB 104, Representative Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee, currently there is not a crime in Alabama that addresses certain sexual fetishes when it involves children or crimes that occur without consent. This bill would amend Section 13A-6-65 relating to sexual misconduct to address this loophole in our law by adding the touching of any body part for sexual gratification.
Members, any questions?
I have a question.
Senator Smithman?
You, Any body part. I mean, you touch my hey, I got a bald head. You touch my head. That's what that means.
It,
I
it,
mean, think about the broadness of what you saying. I mean,
well,
what you just said. Now, I mean, you may be narrow in here,
it
but
is, and that's why
and
I'll
you
go
want
back to recur. It's
and you
for
want that to be the
children.
law. I could walk out of here now and bump into somebody. They say, "Oh, they touched my body part," and then I got to defend that, so I'm guilty of it because it's until I prove I'm not. Think about it. Think about what we saying. People in line trying to get
This
tickets.
this would
People
not
trying to
be.
get into football games. I mean, for real. You
This
you
would
done
not
been there,
apply to
done
that.
that.
This would not apply to that.
How would you gonna determine that? That's a judgment call. That is a
Exactly. It
judgment
would be
call.
up to the judge and the
Why
attorney
I
to
got to
prove
go?
it.
Why would
But
I?
it's for
Why would?
children.
Okay, here's a coach. Here's a coach. I'm just gonna say a coach. Coach, you hit a person on the back all the time. They say, "Good job." I've been coaching 44 years. Good job. And you yes, you have to be selective what you do. Whether you coaching boys or girls, yes, you do. But okay, remember say any person's body part. With guys, let me tell you something. With guys, we bump chests, we do everything like that. They come off the floor and everything. So this right here saying that I could be or anybody could be charged because you touch somebody's body part. He shouldn't have done that. I mean, seriously, man, this is opening up. This is like the Wild West right here.
So it's strictly for the purpose of causing sexual gratification with children. So that would not apply.
Cheering to win 19, 20, 21. We talking about seniors. I mean, I understand the bill up there. Okay, we talking about little children walk around. You're supposed, yeah, but hey, all children ain't little. This a broad bill. I mean, it just said children. If you ain't 21 or the age majority 19, then you fall in this category. That's dangerous. That's dangerous.
Senator Figures.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How do you prove that they had sexual gratification? Just by rubbing up against?
Well, so we have had numerous situations, and it is a growing issue in our state and I will use a reference that happened personally in my district of a child that was underage, and her uncle kept her after school, and he would do things not touching private parts, but do things with to her to have his own sexual gratification, and there's nothing on the laws that
Well, what
will.
did he do exactly? Since
He would
you
suck on her toes, and um, they and it ultimately it led to a lot of mental problems with her, and she did not address this until she had become an adult.
how old was she?
She was 12,
Thank you, Mr.
and
Chairman.
this would close that loophole because they would have to prove for sexual gratification in the courts.
Senator Smithman.
I I can appreciate what you're saying about that one young lady, but we are 5.5 million people in this state, and this bill gonna affect 5.5 million people, not just her. We getting ready to make a bill because of a situation that I agree with you on. So let's clear that up right quick. But we getting ready to pass a bill that's gonna hit all those things I just said and everything else. The price ain't worth that to 5.5 million people that could be subject to something and all these things we saying because of this situation. There are laws that deal with what he did. There are laws right now on the books. Right now, several of them. So why we gotta now get on all that pull that's gonna let me say this and I'm through. I always get this analysis. You going down the runway, driving the airplane. You see your straight path straight to the chairman right there. That's the end where you take off. That's what you trying to do right there. You standing there straight in line and looking. The side of the plane is the wings. When you come down that clear path, your wings gonna take every one of them out, the mics out, it's gonna take us out just to get to that one thing you saying. We are them 5.5 million people I'm talking about. The incidental mishap that's gonna happen to us because you're focusing on going down that runway for your one purpose. We can't make laws just for one purpose. We have to consider the impact it's gonna have on all 5.5 million people in this state. And that's what I'm talking about. There's laws on the books that deal with what you just said right now. Right now, as we speak, they're on the book. You can't, if somebody's not prosecuting or somebody's not going down there filing charges or going to the magistrate, then that's a whole different ball game. But
So,
that can be what we call that. I mean, lawyers help me out in here. Child abuse, then it's called what else is it? No, delinquent to the
Oh, delinquency.
yeah, of amount. All that's on the books. That deal with that. Now, if you don't like the punishment on that, say that they might just give a little class 3 misdemeanor, you won't pop it to a class C felony. That's different.
well, this
But
would be
to
a class
change
A
these laws,
misdemeanor.
I'm through, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Carney.
Yeah, I think like Senator Smitherman said, and the example you gave, and I admire you for trying to fix that problem. But one of the things he mentioned, I don't coach like he coaches. I coach the rec league stuff, and that stuff gets kind of serious and crazy. But I believe you give a parent who wants to attack somebody a tool, even if they're not guilty. And like Senator Figure said, how do you prove that that person was desiring sexual gratification in court, unless they just admit to it? And then not only that, like the burden of proving yourself innocent goes on me as a coach, or as on a family member who didn't mean to do something. Again, I agree with the problem you're trying to solve, but I'm just thinking, like he said, this is way too broad. And to me, I think it probably harms more people than it helps. I would love to see a way to help you, but I don't know if I agree with this one. So I just wanted to clarify. I appreciate what you're doing, but I do think this is so broad that it could capture people that never intended to get caught up in it. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Senator Carney. Senator Singleton.
Yes, and I was just sitting here thinking because I know in my county there was as Citizen Smithman was talking about, a coach coaching girls basketball. Coach had been coaching these girls for maybe 10, 15 years at this time, and the coach, as Senator Smithman said, would always, not patting them on the butt or anything, but pat them on the back and what have you. So this one girl, I think, got mad with coach because he wasn't playing her. Went home and told her mama she didn't like the way that coach touches her. So once they got into it, asked him to step aside, he stepped aside. So they went into further investigation. Is there something happening outside of this? Is he calling you? Is he touching you? If he, doing anything outside of coaching? No. Well, all the other girls came to coach defense and said that they never believed coach is doing it. He's been doing this for years. It's just his way of saying. So this coach just stopped. He just quit coaching because here was a little girl who got pissed because she wasn't getting playing time, and it was about to ruin this man's life because he's doing something and he just been touching them on the back, and so he just stopped coaching. Now he's just out of it doing something else now, in which he could have been messed up for the rest of his life because the little girl saw it as sexual gratification, but it wasn't anything of that. Wasn't anything he was doing differently with her than he was doing anything else. Now, had he been contacting her outside of that, calling her or making other gestures to her, nobody, she could not say anything like that had ever happened. No more than when they're at the game that he might tell her get in the game and hit her on the back or something. But she took it as that, and because she wouldn't get the playing time, and she finally admitted that that's what it was. But he could have been messed up for the rest of his life for that touch.
Members, any other comments or questions? I'll entertain a motion. Representative Parker, you know that you've heard some concerns here. I'll make a motion for first. Is there a second? All right. Having heard no second, bill does not receive a favorable report, and thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, next up, Representative Faulkner, HB 296, and Representative Faulkner, you've got two of them today.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first one, I believe you said, is 296. So, members, what this does, we passed the Retail Theft Crime Prevention Act, and when we did so, we said that the proceeds or property obtained through this, under this law, could be given what was left over after the victim was compensated, could be given to the law enforcement prosecuting authorities. That's existing law. All I'm doing is adding that the sheriff can get proceeds for housing of those prisoners.
Senator Smitherman.
Move favor report.
Got a motion for favorable and second. Senator Weaver, Ms. Ogden. Oh, any other further discussion? Not Ms. Ogden, if you'll call the roll.
Senator Albritton, Senator Bell, Senator Carnley, Senator Coleman Madison, Senator Elliott, Senator Figures, Senator Gavan, Senator Orr, Senator Singleton, Senator Smitherman, Senator Stutz, Senator Weaver, Senator Barfoot.
Aye. All right, that bill receives a favorable report. Next up is HB 363. Still your mic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, after that vote, I'd love to use what y'all call use previous role, and thank you so much. All right, well, didn't work. So 363 is just a clarification on DUI law for murder and manslaughter. Right now, it's pretty open and just left out there undefined. When murder charge is brought, when a manslaughter charge is brought for DUI. I did name this bill after the Spiegels, who were tragically killed when a repeat DUI offender hit them in the rear. Hit another family in the rear, sent that family careening across the Foley Beach Express, and hit Mr. Spiegel, my friend, an attorney from Birmingham, hit his parents head on, killing the DUI driver was fine, who rear-ended the family. The family and his parents were killed. This person had had multiple DUIs, and they were unable to charge the gentleman. Well, he was not charged with murder, and yet he was 5 times the limit, or some gross amount, and he was charged with manslaughter, I believe. So that's when I looked into this and looked at the law. That's where it was to clarify what standards were needed for manslaughter and murder in DUI cases.
Representative Faulkner, if I could, let me make sure I understand. This is the premise for this is that there would have to be, it could be charged as murder if an individual had had a prior DUI conviction, and on that incident that caused the death of someone else, their blood alcohol content was 0.15 or more, which is right at 2 times the legal limit in Alabama.
That would be the minimum, yes, sir.
Go ahead, Senator.
What's the clawback? I guess what you call? We call it the clawback clause. Sound about right? You know, how far you can go back on that DUI? I mean, that was one of the problems with DUIs in the past. They just say if you had a DUI and you had somebody that had one 20 years ago, and now here it is, if it's supposed to be 0.5, they 0.6, and then now that's an enhancement. And we finally went back in the law and said that you could look back to a certain point. And so what I'm trying to find out, what's the look back on this? I mean, this may have been somebody. I'm gonna make you laugh when I tell you, but you know, I know a guy that's walking down this hall right now. He's a lobbyist, and I remember when he was in college, and that way back in the day. Okay, so you gonna reach way back there and say when he was in college he had that, so this situation happened, and now So what's
Yeah, there's in Senator right now that you could go back as far as you wanted as well.
didn't we put some cap on it, or did we uncap it? We did one of the two, and I can just tell you who had the bill.
I think
It
the
was
look
Senator
back
Bedford that
period.
had the bill.
The look back period was 5. I think maybe it's 10 now. It's just off the top of my
But
head.
you remember what I'm talking about? It changed. You know, that's. I just wanted to know that part. Who can?
I was looking to see if the district attorney folks were in here, but they may have had to step out. Senator, I do not know.
Turn around. You got somebody, an expert back there.
Oh,
Yeah.
Senator Smithman.
Could I ask him a question? Could I ask the gentleman
Sure.
a question? Because I want to ask
Mr.
you
Locke,
something.
if you don't mind, would you come to the
Uh,
microphone?
uh, uh,
Yes,
but however, if it's not a felony DUI,
and it's just 10 years. That's if, for example, let's say I have 2 priors, okay? But I don't have a felon. I've got 2 prior misdemeanor DUI convictions, okay? But they happened, say, 12 years ago and 15 years ago. Then I'm DUI 1 right now. If I get busted now.
understand that part.
However, let's say back in the 90s, in August of 94, the DUI law, y'all created a felony DUI. So if I had a felony DUI anytime after August 1st of 94, now the court can go back. They look at, doesn't matter that was a long time ago, doesn't matter at all. If it's once a felon, always a felon. And the current DUI law clearly says if you've been convicted of a felony charge in Alabama or in any other state or territory, the look back is unlimited.
Now, so in those situations, though, the judge can look back and exercise their discretion.
If it's, not discretion, the prosecution's going to have to prove, of course, what the prior is, whether or not they
I'm
had
saying
that.
that part.
But the felony, no, it's mandatory.
No, not the felony. I'm talking about the non-felony.
The non-felony, again, it would just be the prosecution would have to prove whether or not it was conviction and whether or not this person has 2 priors. Again, you can go back 10 years for any non-felony DUI convictions.
All right. And then my question shifts to the representative. Okay, so what's the difference you doing here? Based on what he just said, we always can do this and we rarely can do this. What are we doing different here?
They was putting some clarification.
And what kind of clarification?
That for murder and manslaughter, that's the only thing we've done. Is there's nothing really in this law that states what that minimum is for a DUI for murder. I mean, still all the circumstances get evaluated, but you've got to be twice the legal limit and have had a previous DUI for you to have a murder charge brought against you. If you've and of course taken the life of a person.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think your question is if someone had a DUI, which was a misdemeanor 30 years ago, under this bill, would they be able to be prosecuted for a murder case if that previous DUI conviction was 30 years ago?
That's the general term, and it's even more specific is what the gentleman said when he got up. Because my concern, Representative, is that I'm just going to be very honest with you, and of course you probably know this. I don't necessarily like these mandatory sentences. I like the discretion for the judge. If you want to get more, fine, less, fine. Because each set of facts is totally independent. We're saying that if this happened, you just got this. And I'm real concerned about that in any bills that we have.
Yes, sir.
I mean, because we in there now trying to figure out how to deal with unique situations when we put people in jail. Because this is not a criticism, but it's a fact. Because we don't cut out good time. So now we got folks just gonna be sitting there, no matter how light the crime is, how heavy the crime is. And so now we are saying here go another mandatory thing. We finna, you understand what I'm saying? On every situation, and every one of them does not, in my opinion, demand that everything is mandatory.
And Senator, I appreciate that, and I understand exactly where you're coming from. This would only be setting a standard that you have to get to even consider a murder charge, and for the manslaughter charge. So it's the way I view it. The sentence would, of course, has nothing to do with the sentencing, but this would say, which they can do now and they evaluate now, but it would set that minimum bar. if you will, that you've got to have this, or you're not bringing a murder charge. You've got to meet this threshold, but still, all the factors would be weighed and considered as they are now. This just kind of puts something on the books
Okay.
that
Senator Stutz.
Okay. I got you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a couple questions. One, what's the rationale of having the blood alcohol level at 0.15 instead of just what the legal limit is to be impaired?
it is roughly double the legal limit, and it is in some other laws, and maybe Senator
I mean,
Smith
either
or
you're
Senator Barfoot.
impaired or you're not. You know, if we've got this level that classifies as impairment, I don't. So I question if it really should be doubled. But then the second question related to that same thing is, what about impaired by some other substance? Uh, you know, the
It's hard to.
profile case in Auburn, the driver was impaired with marijuana and
Yes.
and ran into somebody, knocking them into the other lane. They were both killed. Had nothing to do with alcohol. So what about other impairments and the manslaughter murder charge?
I'm not an expert on this, but my understanding is they can bring that charge against you, but it's hard to define and put a number in there. Whereas under our DUI laws, that 0.15 is a number that is set for in heightened charges on the DUI. And I see Senator Bell nodding, so he may know. But the DAs told me that number matches with what's already on the books for being what we say double the legal limit. And
I think that's the cutoff sometimes on pretrial diversion programs, that if you're under that level, that you're
Okay.
eligible for pretrial diversion. And I don't know if that's, yeah, that 1.5, it does, there is a provisions in law that reference that 0.15, or maybe it's over 0.15. But Senator Stutz, did you have any other questions?
Well, and then what about, explain to me again, then other impairments?
so you can, as I understand it, be prosecuted if you are impaired and driving. But this bill would not be addressing or clarifying in that sense, because I don't believe there's a way to really do that, to measure what your impairment is. So this is strictly dealing with DUI, this clarification.
So,
Senator
question,
Singleton.
just to go with what he was talking about, I got 2 prior minor DUIs, right?
Hypothetically.
Hypothetical. Which I don't have any DUIs ever in my life, but hypothetical. 2 prior DUIs, and I'm on Oxycontin, not marijuana, or something that a doctor prescribes, since he want to put it at marijuana, but something that a doctor prescribes. I'm on Oxycontin, high as a kite, because I can get way higher on Oxycontin than I can on marijuana. And I go there, hit a family, and kill someone. And is that look back goes with that DUI then based on another substance that they might find in my body?
Um, y- y- I- do you ha-
Can I answer? I don't think this
I-
bill addresses other substances. Senator Bell?
But I think if you have a prior other substances DUI and then get a DUI alcohol under this scenario, then that DUI other substance would still count as a previous DUI for this.
Members, any other questions or comments? Do you have a motion?
I'll move favor report to get out of committee, and then if needs some more work probably, but I'll be glad to.
Got a motion by Senator Smitherman, second by Senator Bell. Ms. Ogden, if you'll call the roll for us.
Senator Albritton, Senator Bell, Senator Carnley, Senator Coleman Madison, Senator Elliott, Senator Figures, Senator Gavan, Senator Orr, Senator Singleton, Senator Smitherman,
Aye.
Senator Stutz, Senator Weaver, Senator Barfoot.
Aye. All right. You received a favorable report on that bill. Appreciate you attending.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Smitherman. Thank you, all members. Thank you.
All right.
Want y'all to know there's a good representative from Jefferson County right there. Good man.
Hey, remind him of that when you need to. All right, next up, and looks like the last bill on the agenda is HB 16 by Representative England. I think Senator Singleton's going to be handling that for him. We also have a public hearing, but I'll let you explain the bill first.
Yes, Representative England called me this morning, asked me to handle this bill. Under the current statute of bail bondsmen, I think a few years ago we took out partial bail bondsmen out of the statute to make it whole. And what this bill does is put the partial back in, which gives a judge the ability to be able to give a partial bond or not. And I think Representative England's intent is to make sure that money not just go to the bail bondsman, but this on a cash bail can come back to the court, and for money can be given to victims and or compensation or whatever happens inside the courts. And that's the gist of this bill. Is basically putting back in the word part in based on what we had taken out back in under the Reform Act of 1993.
Okay, Senator Smitherman.
Move favorable.
Well, we made a motion and
Oh,
a
I'm
second,
sorry.
but
They
we
got-
do have a public hearing.
I'm sorry.
Let's
I
call up.
withdraw. I withdraw.
Sorry, we got two folks that have signed up. Ms. Melberg is not here. She had to leave. That's okay. Stay right there. I just want to make sure we had two. We have one proponent, and that's Ms. Melberg with the DA's Association. She had to step out, and I'll advocate or let the body know her position on this. And then Mr. McNeil is here, and he is an opponent. Mr. McNeil, I'm going to give you 2 minutes.
Yes, sir.
The microphone's yours. And
Yes,
if you could, let us know who you're with.
I'm with the Alabama Bail Bond Association and the president here in Alabama. What this bill would do, this would be an attempt at bail reform that we've seen in many states that are on the news all the time. And what we get from this is just failure to appears. The states that have done this are averaging a 70% failure to appear rate. As the law stands right now, the court can set the cash bond at any amount they want to. Doing a percentage, then it allows a defendant to come in and pay a percentage of the bond, normally on a misdemeanor, $30, $50, $100. Those costs are not covered when the defendant fails to appear in court. The court can't recover that cost to go out and recover that defendant on that $30, $50, $100. So those warrants just sit out there. Most police departments or sheriff's departments don't have the manpower to go out and rearrest these defendants again, and that's going to be the result of this bill if it was to pass. The city of Mobile did this about 7 years ago for about 2-year period. We did the 70% failure to appear rate, and then the court swapped back. So it was miserably failed.
Senator Bill.
I guess the one thing I can say on this, it allows the judge to have discretion, which I like. The judge can set the bail, say their person will not come to court on a DUI, and they owe money. They won't do their CRO program, won't do something. The judge can set the bail and the amount to cover the DUI, and the city recovers the funds that are owed, the court costs and things of that nature. There's many different ways to do it. I don't know any judge that's going to want to say, give me $100, you can get out, because most of them want to capture what is owed to the city or the state and do that. And I can see it both ways, but that's my avenue of thought on this being favorable. This gives the judge a discretion that I think they need. I know Smithman kind of figures the same way on judicial discretion.
Senator Smithman.
I do, and I've actually, in my lifetime experience, in this profession, what you're saying, and it even allows flexibility, like you said. Yeah, initially, I just give a clear example to everyone. Sometimes when you say failure to appear, a person don't show up, and I know one case, person lawyer got off the case, they didn't get the notice, they didn't show up, judge took good judgment, and it was cash bond, and then once they understood what the facts were, it's just like what you said, then just okay, well, I'm gonna bring it to here, So it has an advantage for citizens, even under those scenarios, and so I.
And the court to recruit more money.
Yeah, and the court can get more money. That's right. That's right. The court get more money, and that's.
Well, the court now has the absolute authority to set the amount at any amount they want to.
I understand, but we understand what you're saying. Let
I
me
don't
put
get it
let,
all.
let me just say this to you right here. To him, and I'm through Mr. Chairman when I say this. I think if you go pull up the record, I've supported what y'all done it for all the years I've been here because I understand it. I represent the city of Birmingham.
Yes, sir.
I stay on the same side of town that the initial city judge jail is there. You can imagine how many bail bonding places right across the street. I mean, I can ride down the street and take your pick, whatever. So I had just said that to you that I understand what you're saying,
Yes,
but
sir.
what the senator said is absolutely right. What he said there, and that's why I'm gonna support the bill.
Senator Bill.
I'd ask Eric Locke if if they have a position on this or not. I don't. Okay. We're pro judicial discretion. Yeah. Okay.
Let me, Mr. McNeil, let me ask you, I got a couple questions, I guess, just for clarity purposes. So when I talked to Representative England, I'm going to give you an example. $10,000 bond that the court sets. If little Bobby's in jail, let's use little Bobby, is in jail, and little Bobby's family calls, finds that's a $10,000 bond. Current law is they could go and post either a cash bond of, here's $10,000 court, put up property in that same valuation, $10,000 piece of property, or they could go through a bonding company.
Yes, sir.
And if they go through a bonding company, depending on which bonding company, depending on which charge, depending on lots of different factors, maybe that bond may be 10 to 15, sometimes maybe higher, but let's use 10 for rough math purposes. On a $10,000 bond, that individual, the family member, would take $1,000 to a bonding company, and that bonding company would, has documentation at the court system, say, hey, we're bonded, and so individual signs out, or the family member signs as a guarantor on that. That individual is then released.
Correct.
There's a court date. That individual that y'all have bonded out did not come back to court for that court date. I think most of the times y'all are trying to find them, right?
Absolutely.
And bring them back and to the court and say, hey, we've released you to the court system and we're now off the bond, right?
Correct.
In those cases where that individual doesn't come back and you're unable to find them on or before that court date, my thought process is the courts would say, okay, you were responsible for this person and you signed a bond saying you were responsible up to the amount of $10,000 and we're going to forfeit your bond. Does that happen?
Absolutely happens.
Okay.
Didn't happen to me because I'm going to go get them.
Right.
But there is times if I can't find little Bobby, I got to stroke the check.
Okay. So hold on real quick. Let me follow.
Yeah.
So can you, and I'm not asking you for exact numbers, but because I thought that happened all the time, that not only were you out, the bonding company would have been out $10,000, right? But that there's a forfeiture proceeding that has to happen in front of the court as to what happened, why they aren't there before the court can seize and make the bonding company pay that $10,000.
Correct. We have a time period in order to get that person back in court or recover that person. Once that period expires, then we have to pay up. This bill, when somebody posts their own bond, and if they posted a percentage, that 10%, the court can't recover that other 90%. There's nobody guaranteeing that.
All right.
So it's out in the wind.
So, but you're telling me, and I'm not asking for an exact percentage. Is it normal that there's a forfeiture hearing on the bond amount that the bonding company has put up for this individual who doesn't show back up? Is that a normal practice that there's a forfeiture hearing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Members?
I'm sorry, Miss. I would just respectfully disagree with the gentleman based on statistics that are out there. I think there are probably 2 or 3 counties that does forfeitures. And that probably, as I understand, as you may also understand, Houston County may be one of them that does it more frequent than anyone else. I know Tuscaloosa, to where Mr. England lives, doesn't do it a lot. And I know it's not done out in the rural areas a lot. So for that to happen, it may be happening in Jefferson, but around the state of Alabama, the forfeiture hearing does not happen on a regular basis.
So I would say this, in my opinion, if that is the reality, that when somebody doesn't show up and a bonding company has them out, if the majority, I won't say all, but if the majority of the time that there are forfeiture hearings and the ability for the court to assess and to capture that bond amount and put it back in, that I think this bill probably doesn't do what it's intended to do. But if that's not true, if that bonding company typically is not responsible for that bond amount to the court when that individual doesn't show up, then I think this bill is a good bill. So, any other comments or questions, members? All right. We had a first and a second, I believe, already. Ms. Ogden, if you'll call the roll.
Senator Albritton, Senator Bell, Senator Carnley, Senator Coleman Madison, Senator Elliott, Senator Figures, Senator Gavan, Senator Orr, Senator Singleton, Senator Smitherman, Senator Stutz, Senator Weaver, Senator Barfoot.
I'm gonna vote aye. I have some concerns. I'd like to get to the bottom of that, and if the forfeitures really happen, then I'll be against this. If the forfeitures don't happen, I'm all for it.
Yes, sir.
Bill's given favor report.
Mr. Chairman, ma'am,
Yes, sir.
comment.
Let me also, I should have said this. I apologize. I said Ms. Milberg was here. She was. I think the DA's position was that they were for the bill. And so I'll let her elaborate at a later time. But Senator Smitherman.
I just wanted to say that even in those areas that do that maybe more frequent than others, that judge generally continues what they trying to do and let them have the time to do what they doing. And I say that because I was a clerk of criminal district court for 2.5 years before I was a lawyer. A long time ago. But I'm the one who had the stamps over there and decided whether or not you can or can't do it. So I know what I was letting be done. Judge gave me permission to do it, and I let them have some time.
Before we adjourn, let me give one more shout out. Started off, I think, this session by talking about the documents that you have in there. Mike Harper, the lawyer for Judiciary, does a great job of filling us in, letting us know the intricacies of each bill, where there may be some inconsistencies or things we need to think about. So I'd appreciate it if we'd all give him a round of applause. Thank you, Mike. Meeting's adjourned.